Great. So what we'll be taking a look at this morning is the sample inventory feature set here within iLab. So the 3 pages that we'll mostly be looking at are over under the Find Inventory page on the left-hand menu. And I've started out here on the Manage Locations page. And this is where a group can create locations that match up to physical locations within the facility or lab. And here I have some examples set up. You can see they go from as high level as a building, and then drilling down through floors and rooms. And I have different things like cabinets and shelves. We can get down to a box, and you can actually see the slots within a box in a freezer. And the process to add locations is pretty easy. I can click on the create option over on the right-hand side. I'm provided with a list of different location types, and I can go ahead and select from that list. And here I will just add another floor to our building. I could choose who to share this location with. So this particular demo account that I'm logged in as has access to one lab, and I could also just choose that this location is just private to this account. I can also designate this location with a category. So just to make it easier to find specific locations, if there's maybe a subset of locations that are under my control that I store chemicals in, and I want to just key in on any of those specific areas where we have chemicals stored, I can tag the location with a category. I can create new categories, and I can also view all of the locations that are included within a category. And then lastly, I can add this location to my existing locations. So here again, I could drill down if I only wanted to see the chemical options here. If I wanted to add another chemical one to existing, I could see some of my favorites recently used, and then I can drill through and click on locations here to see their subsets. And then I can also backtrack through the breadcrumbs above. So I'm going to jump back to the top level because I'm adding a floor, and I'm going to add that floor to the Harris building. So I'll click the bubble next to the Harris building and go ahead and hit save. And now we can see we have a 5th floor within the Harris building. So this allows us to create locations as needed. I can actually also jump into the different locations and see what exists within them. Just taking a quick look at that here. So I can see, okay, I have some freezers within it. I have some different inventory items. So here I can also edit my locations, create a PDF, mark them as favorites so they'll show up when I'm creating new ones. And as the locations are created, now I can go through the process of adding samples to those new locations. So I'm going to click to the Add Inventory page, which I actually have opened in the next tab here. And this will give me an interface where I can select from different sample types. This is sort of our standard list of sample types, but our implementation team can work with a group to add new templates to this list. And clicking on a sample type, I will be provided with a set of fields that corresponds with that sample type. So we can see here for cells, and then if I click again, I'll switch over to yeast. And those fields will change over. Let me just make sure I'm selecting that one. And I think I have just a little bit of a lag here as I'm sharing in our demo system, but as you click from one sample to the next, we should be seeing a new set of fields here. But as I said, I think there's a little bit of a lag within our demo system here. But basically, we can set up a set of attribute fields. They can be created with either short strings or longer strings. We can put in things like the location, which allows you to set a specific location based on the template that we chose or created further a moment earlier within the Manage Locations page. I can also do things like add in checkboxes. So if I had maybe a question, is this a hazardous material? Check yes or no. We can add in things like that as well. Additionally, we have fields here for things like expiration. We can also add in calendars, so it allows you to select a specific date. This information, again, can be shared with different audiences to start. So here I can share this and have the information set for only my own viewing. I can give different access levels to folks within my lab. And then scrolling down further, I can actually lay out all of my aliquots. So if I was running some cell lines here and I had different attributes that went along with each of my instances, I can go ahead and create that information here as well. So going through, I can set each individual location. So if I had, maybe 10 test tubes and I wanted to drill through and find the actual location that I wanted to store this in, and we'll get all the way down to a box, and then I could go ahead and designate, okay, I want to put this particular item inside of cell F1, and I can go ahead and set that location and move on further with my amounts, expirations, concentrations, et cetera. If I had a large batch of data that I wanted to pull in, or maybe if I had some of this data that already exists in another form, in an Excel spreadsheet, Google Doc, I can download a template of my different fields. I can pull that information into my downloaded file and then upload that back to this page as well to make it a little bit easier. I can also add a number of instances to one location. So if I didn't want to go through and fill out all of my concentrations and expirations and everything right now, I just ran the samples, I'm putting them all into a freezer, and then I'll go back tomorrow and update that information. I can do that as well. So I could say that I have 10 of these and I want to add them all to one spot, and that will allow me to then go back and make those changes. Saving this page here will open a details page for the sample. So here is an example where we have our attributes field that is filled out above. There's also an area where I can provide a summary, and that's all information that applies to the overarching sample. And then again, as on the previous page, scrolling down further, I can see each of my instances, and we can see the representations of those different fields that we saw earlier. I can go ahead and customize this table. So if I wanted to display different information from this view or remove things if it's feeling too cluttered, I can also drill into each individual line and edit and make changes as needed. So you can see here, there's also the ability to add comments and attachments to each individual instance. So if there was a problem with this one, I wanted to jot something down, or if I had a protocol attachment for a specific task that I was performing on just this instance, I could add that here as well. Additionally, we can add in events. So if there was any specifics that were happening to just this aliquot here, I can add those in, timestamp them, provide in notes, and that information will be saved on the line. I can also drill in and make changes from the bird's eye view here, adding notes, changing the status. And then scrolling down further, there's some more information that can be saved again to that overarching sample type. So if I wanted to add in files that correspond with all of my instances, I can set to-dos. We can see there's one here that's set for Eric. You can monitor the status. So as he's working on it, he can check off, okay, it's in progress right now, or it's completed. I can share the information with individuals or with the whole lab. And again, control the level of access that they see. So it could be read-only, they can have the ability to edit, or they could also have the ability to edit and share with others. And this information can be shared with, again, the individuals, with specific members of a lab. And then we can also do things like create projects. So maybe if this relates to other types of work that's going on in the group, we can create a project and add these samples to that project. So it's a great way of grouping together work that's being done within the lab. Similarly, we have this linking option. So if there was another set of samples, or maybe a product, or any other kind of information that's being stored within the system today that we wanted to link to this page here, I can do that below. So as I'm going through, maybe I'm finished looking at these and I see, okay, this is similar to a run that we did 3 months ago that's linked here. Let me go ahead and click on that page. And then lastly, comments and messages that are for the overarching sample type. So now that we've gone in and we could make any changes to this particular set of samples, I could then click on the Find Inventory page, which I have open in the next tab here. And this is a running list of all the inventory that I have access to. So this will be things that are shared with my whole lab or anything that I've created myself and just kept private to my own login. What you'll also see on this page here is a mix of the samples as well as some products, because we have another materials management module, which we can see some options here under the requisitioning section that helps with kind of facilitating that requisitioning workflow and any kind of ordering that's being done of consumables within a group. And those items, when received in the lab, can also be added to inventory and they can be searched for alongside any of your sample information. If we wanted to drill into just the samples, I can go into these fields over on the left-hand side, our filter options, and I can select what information I'd like to see here. So I'll exclude the product info, click apply filters, and the list will repopulate with just the sample data. And here again, we can see our individual instances. Similar to the last page, I can go through and add in notes. I can open up an individual row and make changes. Our same attachments and comments as we saw on the last page. One other thing we can see over on the right-hand side here is there's the ability to link this whole system up with a barcode printer and generate barcodes. And to kind of illustrate how that would work, if I had 3 test tubes here and I wanted to create a barcode for each, I could then print out a sticker barcode label that has a unique identifying number that the system would provide. I can also add any of the field data that we see here. So if I wanted to add on to that physical label, the name of the item, the date, the expiration, any of that sort of data as well, and stick that physically onto the test tube or the box or whatever I'm tracking. And then 3 months down the road, I could bring that tube over to the computer, scan it with a barcode scanner into this field here, and it will recall that line of inventory. So it makes it a little bit easier to pull up information on a specific item in the lab without having to recall exactly how it was named within here. That can help with the reconciliation process and making sure that things are matching up in the lab as they are shown here within the system. To also aid with that, I can do some other things here, like export this information. So if I wanted to, for instance, filter for a specific location, see everything that's listed within a given room, then go ahead and export all that info as a PDF. I could then take that paper to the room or bring the computer or laptop to the room and verify that what I'm seeing in the room matches what we have here. And if not, you can make changes, if there's something that's empty, or if an amount has changed, if this item no longer exists, it could be removed from inventory entirely. Some other things here at the top of the page, we have 3 different tabs. The first, by product. So if we wanted to see just that product details, as we mentioned earlier, and see the items listed by product, we have a tab for that here. Similarly, there's a by sample tab. So we see within the inventory tab that we're on now, we'll have a line for each individual aliquot. If we click on by sample, it will group together those different rows and show us them here with those groupings. So I can see my virus line, I have that inventory count of 3. I can go ahead from this page as well as the larger search page and open up the details as we looked at before. Then we also have an administration page, and this is a tab that any manager of a group would have access to. This is helpful when someone is leaving the lab and they were the owner of several items in the inventory. I can share that information or basically transfer all of that data onto someone else in the group so that someone can continue to have access and edit rights and everything to all of the data that someone in the lab had who is now leaving. So really at a high level here, this covers our sample inventory. Just kind of a quick recap. From the left menu, we have the Manage Locations page, which allows a group to create locations, mimicking the physical locations that they have in the lab. We have the Add Inventory page, where you can navigate through different sample types, as well as customized sample types that we can build out for you with the help of our implementation and engineering teams. Once the fields here are populated and saved, you have the sample details page, which will give you a view of the sample and any of your instances. And then lastly, we have the Find Inventory page where you can go back and search and filter for any of the items that are stored within your lab. So I think that's all I have to show here. If there are any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
The barcode reader, do you have to have a special barcode reader in order for it to work with this?
As far as the reader, I believe there's a great deal of flexibility. Today, we do have some specifics as far as the printer and what can be integrated in with the system. But if there's any question on that, or as it gets further, we can provide a list of the specific printers that would work best with the system. And the reader, I believe we have folks who are using both a wireless reader as well as a reader that's plugged directly into a computer.
That sounds really cool. How do you use that? Just off the top of my head, but I don't know. Misty, you probably know more.
Oh, definitely. I think that would make their life a lot easier.